Hello, everyone. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the processing and presentation of the data table in Excel for our first lab. That is the determination of the acceleration due to gravity. In it, I'm going to assume that you're working with Excel. I will assume that you have the Excel app downloaded and installed on your device. This is free through the school, and notice it is the app, not the browser version. The browser version actually does not have the ability to do everything, and you will not discover that until you get pretty late into doing the data analysis for your lab. So make sure you have the app, if not, CIT. I will assume that you have your data sort of entered into Excel, but basically nothing else. And what I'm going to do is in these videos, I'm going to walk you through a number of the steps. What I'm going to do is show you what to do, and I'm going to talk about it. But it is important to recognize that you yourself may have a different version of Excel. And I promise you that in every version of Excel, it will be possible to do what I'm going to show you in these videos. But it may not be in exactly the same place. You're going to need to find it. So you may need to pause as you do your data analysis on the video to find whatever it is that I'm referring to if it's not immediately apparent. If it is in a different language, you may need to figure out what the translation is and look it up. So without further ado, I'm going to assume you have your data arranged like this. You have a set of 5 values of the independent variable, that is your height, and you have 25 values for the time taken for the ball or the object to drop. Arranged like this with your dependent variable as sort of these columns here and your independent variable in a single column on the left, where these right here are simply multiple trials of the same data. So in assuming this, there's a lot to do. So in this video, I'm going to format and present the data table. All right, so the first things first. First of all, these are all trials and not times. So I'm going to put time up one column. Time applies to all of them. And I'm going to write this as trial 1. And then for each of the subsequent trials, I'm going to use a tool that Excel has. I'm going to drag the bottom right-hand corner across, and you'll see that Excel will identify that there's a number in my entry, and will assume that what I want to do, which is correct, is increment it. So I want it to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? We're going to use that drag the bottom right-hand corner of the cell trick a lot. So that's something you want to get used to. Secondly, I want my time to apply to all of these columns. So I'm going to use this option here. This is the merge option. And I want to merge and center the time. So I'm merging the different cells and centering the time in that cell. Likewise, I'd like to center all of my data, actually. And so I'm going to format it so that it is centered. That makes it easier to read. Not only that, but I would like, and we're going to add more later, but I would like some borders on this. So I'm going to use the border button and do all borders here, and I can play around with the details later, but by having these borders here, I can make my data more legible. Now in my height and my time, I have not given a unit, which I need to do, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Right? Time is in seconds, and my height, as shown right here, is in meters. If it's in centimeters, you probably want to convert it. Okay, so far so good. Now, the last thing I need in my independent variable versus my dependent variable is for each measurement, I need to insert my estimated uncertainty here. Okay, I need my estimated uncertainty. And in order to do that, I'm going to think about the uncertainty, and we can discuss this more, but think about the uncertainty on the particular measurements. Different students may have different uncertainties. And actually, let me pause this for one moment. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. I just wanted to verify something quickly. So I'm going to share my screen again. All right, we want to make sure we have the uncertainty for both the height and the time here. And we're going to represent that uncertainty with a plus minus. Now you could insert a symbol of the appropriate form within Excel if you want, but I actually find that the easiest way to go ahead and get the appropriate symbol is simply to Google the plus minus symbol, as I have just done, copy and paste that symbol from the Google result, and paste that in. So I'm going to paste my plus minus symbol in, and the uncertainty on the height, I'm going to estimate as being at least sort of 2 centimeters or so for my particular measurement. We can talk more about what that would mean for you and whether that's an appropriate estimate for you as well. And so that's plus or minus 0.02 meters, okay? So the height is in meters and my uncertainty is plus or minus 0.02 meters here, okay? That might not be your uncertainty. I'll spread this out so it can see that particular value, all right? Likewise, I'm going to do the same for the time, and I'm going to estimate the uncertainty in my time as being approximately 0.25 seconds, okay? And let me give 2 sig figs on my uncertainty here so that there's no confusion. So I'm going to make this plus or minus 0.020 meters and plus or minus 0.25 seconds. So let's say these are my uncertainties, all right? And I want this to fill and look nice. So I have my uncertainties here on both of my independent and dependent variables. I could also have this wrap, okay? So I'm going to see if I can do that live here. I would like this to wrap in format. So I'm going to format this particular cell. And I would like to wrap text, okay? And what that will do is, if I make this smaller, it'll wrap the text onto the next line. That's kind of interesting. It really should spread this out as well. And you can see the values here, okay? And if I want this to be fully centered, I could also hit this button. All right, so we're looking pretty good. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to need 2 more columns on my data. And that's the column for the average time. Okay, I'm going to take an average of all of my trials. And a column for the uncertainty on the time. So for the uncertainty on the time, I'm going to use IB notation. And this time, I'll just try to add the symbol straight from Excel. The symbol I need for the uncertainty is delta. So I'm going to find the appropriate button in Excel. Here's the symbol button all the way over here. I would like a symbol, and I would like a delta. So I'm going to Google delta here, and there's a nice capital delta. So I have my delta, all right? I've got that delta, and I will use the delta for the uncertainty on the time. So I'm going to make this delta t here. Delta t has a unit as well. That unit is in seconds. My average time, okay, so I could write that as average time, or I could say TAV or something, is also going to have a unit of seconds, all right? Great. So now that I have these columns, I'm going to want some borders. So I'm going to add those borders back in. And I would like an average of these values here. And the way I'm going to do that is to use Excel. So Excel is going to calculate my averages. I am never going to pull out a calculator. Excel can do everything your calculator can do, and almost certainly it can do it better. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to click on the cell I want to take an average from. I'm going to take an average of all 5 of these trials. I'm going to go to the function box, and I'm going to write equals. Okay, that tells me, or that tells Excel that I want it to be a function. I'm going to type the word average here, and I'm going to open my parentheses, and then I'm going to drag the data in all the way across, okay? And that will fill in the cells that I wanted, okay? I'm going to do that one more time so everybody can see it. That's equals, and then type the word average in, open my parentheses, drag the relevant data in, close the parentheses, hit enter. That gives me my average time for this set of data. Notice that with that average time, I can then have it autofill the rest of my data. So I grab the bottom right-hand corner and I drag it down. And that is probably the single most useful aspect of Excel, which is that if you put in any kind of function, you can have it autofill the function for subsequent rows or columns of your data. Now, let's take a look at this. If my uncertainty is plus or minus 0.25 seconds, then I want to make sure that I'm showing the appropriate number of significant figures on all of my values here. Okay, and right now 0.5 is being read, and if I try to put a 0 in it, okay, it reformats it. And that's because Excel thinks it's in the general category. I need to tell Excel it's in the number category so that I control the number of significant figures. So I'm going to highlight all my data here, okay, all my data. In order to control the number of significant figures, I'm going to tell Excel to format it as a number. When it does so, all right, it then gives me the ability to choose the number of significant figures. So if I wanted fewer, I could hit this button right here. If I wanted more, I could hit this button right here. And so it will allow me to format the number to the correct number of significant figures. In this case, because my uncertainty is plus or minus 0.25 seconds, then my value is given here as 0.50 seconds, and I have the appropriate number of significant figures. Notice I did that for the average too. And I could do it separately. For example, for my heights, I might say that, well, I'm going to have this final value here. I might reformat this data to reflect the number of significant figures actually that I would like to show, which might be different from over here. And you can format the numbers separately. All right. So given that, I'm going to then calculate my uncertainties. So I have my average times here. Okay, my average times are given to the same number of decimal places here. And I would like the uncertainty on my time as well. To do that, there are a number of different ways. You can use standard deviation or the standard error on the mean. But what I would recommend, if you don't know what those things are, is to use the range method. And what that means is that I'm going to take the maximum value of my data for any set of trials. I'm going to subtract the minimum value of my data, and I'm going to divide by 2. So what does that look like in Excel? Well, I can do it the hard way. That is, I can pick out these data points and calculate it manually, or I can use Excel to make it easier. So what I'm going to do is say this is going to be equal to the maximum value of this data minus the minimum value of this data. Notice I'm using 2 different Excel functions here. I'm using max and min. And then I need some parentheses on this to make sure I'm dividing the whole thing by 2. So I divide it by 2, and that gives me my uncertainty on the data shown. Okay, that gives me the uncertainty on my data shown. I can then drag that down and format that uncertainty to 2 significant figures. And with that, there are a couple of other formatting things you could do. But with that, I have correctly formatted my raw data table.